A. BMI. Body mass index, or BMI, is a ratio involving height and weight that is often used in healthcare. A BMI over 25 is generally regarded as overweight. Over 30 is regarded as obese, and health risks such as cancer and diabetes are much higher for those who are obese. However, some experts feel BMI should be replaced with another indicator. One reason is that BMI does not take into account things like muscle mass and bone density, and there are ethnic differences that are not reflected in the current standards. Another common complaint is that people can be turned away from surgeries, especially knee replacements, due to high BMIs. However, some doctors argue that the discomfort and negative health outcomes of not having surgery greatly outweigh the risks. Another problem, according to pediatrician Tracy Richmond, is that the current emphasis on BMI leads to numerous incorrect diagnoses because physicians erroneously assume that people's symptoms are the result of obesity when they are actually caused by unrelated illnesses. Recent research suggests that visceral fat, which is the fat around one's waist, may be a much better indication of health risks, so a ratio of one's hip and waist measurements may be more suitable than BMI.
Questions. Number 1. What is one common result of having a high BMI? Number 2. What does Tracy Richmond suggest about BMI? B. Hospital rankings. It is becoming increasingly common for patients to consult hospital rankings in the mass media or from private businesses before seeking medical treatment. Experts, however, have mixed feelings about the evaluations because they may not offer a clear picture of the quality of hospitals. They seem beneficial for some medical conditions, such as heart attacks, where there are straightforward measurements, like survival rates, that can be analyzed objectively. For illnesses like diabetes, however, there are numerous complicating factors that can affect the data, such as patients' financial status or other illnesses patients are suffering from simultaneously. Furthermore, some systems include hospitals' reputations in the ranking, but experts feel such ratings can be biased or less beneficial than objective measurements. Another serious problem is that certain statistics can be misleading. One health analyst named Ben Harder says that statistics like infection rates can confuse people. Since people obviously want to avoid contracting any illnesses while they are at the hospital, this seems like a useful statistic. However, evidence shows that often hospitals report higher rates of infections because they are tracking them better and are actually more successful at reducing them. On the other hand, those with seemingly low rates have sometimes been shown to have serious infection issues that they are doing nothing to remedy.
Questions. Number 3. What is one thing we learn about diabetes? Number 4. What does Ben Harder say about infection rates?
C. The Whitehall Study. The Whitehall Study was a research project conducted on British civil servants beginning in the 1960s. The researchers recorded subjects' health, focusing on mortality rates, which means the percentage who died each year. The British civil service was hierarchical, and it was found that the mortality rate for those at the bottom of the hierarchy was 3 times that of those on top. While it is true that one's income has an impact on mortality, the Whitehall researchers discovered that social status was actually more significant. Those in administrative positions had superior health outcomes to those in subordinate positions, even when incomes were similar. A leading cause of mortality was heart disease, which is strongly associated with stress. However, rather than the volume of work, something else appeared to be causing the most harmful types of stress. Results showed that people with intense jobs like senior executive had a slightly increased risk of mortality. On the other hand, those in less demanding positions with the least autonomy or authority tended to have the highest mortality. Jobs where one lacks a say in how and when one does one's work, it seems, may increase harmful stress and lead to the most negative health outcomes.
Questions. Number 5. What was the main finding of the Whitehall study? Number 6. Which types of jobs were the most harmful?
D. Tetrataenite. Today, many eco-friendly technologies used in the United States, such as electric car motors, rely on magnets made from materials known as rare earths. Rare earths, while not actually rare, are difficult and expensive to extract, and must be combined with other elements or materials. Furthermore, the rare earth market is dominated by just a few countries, and if they were to cut off supplies, it could be devastating to America's green economy. However, a substance called tetrataenite may provide an alternative. Up until now, tetrataenite has been obtained exclusively from meteorites and takes millions of years to form, meaning that it is in extremely short supply. However, scientists have recently discovered a way to produce a synthetic form of the metal. This could be a revolutionary discovery that drastically reduces the cost of green energy technologies. Furthermore, it would lessen US dependence on major rare earth producers, like China. However, there could be a downside. If most magnets were made using tetrataenite, production of rare earths would plunge, and cost reductions achieved through mining massive quantities of rare earths might disappear. This would drive up the costs of other items made using them, such as electronic devices like smartphones.
Questions. Number 7. What is one thing we learn about tetrataenite? Number 8. What is one possible effect of the discovery?
E. The future of AI. AI has made great strides in recent years, thanks mainly to what is known as deep learning. This technique involves feeding millions of data samples into an algorithm in order to train it for a specific task. However, this requires massive computational power, and there are worries that increases in the processing speed of the chips that control computers are falling behind the progress being made in the AI software itself. For example, current French to English translation algorithms make errors 50% of the time. Increasing their accuracy to 90% would necessitate many billions of times more power than current models possess. Experts worry, therefore, that the pace at which AI develops is likely to drop off substantially. While processes that miniaturize chips and the development of new types of chips specialized in AI may increase processing power somewhat, things like driverless cars and real-time translation would likely require far more computational power than these improvements would bring. Furthermore, cooling the computers that do the processing requires nearly unimaginable amounts of energy. For this reason, massive increases in computing power have the potential to result in massive increases in carbon emissions that would accelerate the climate crisis.
Questions. Number 9. What are some AI experts worried about? Number 10. What does the speaker say about computers' processing power?